Hello, FHIR community. I want to thank the HL7 Patient Empowerment Committee for recently inviting me to present at its recent meeting to answer any questions they had on my white paper, Playing with Fire. The statement that I'm about to give is a response to individuals within the FHIR community that gave their public feedback to my paper on social media over the last couple weeks. I'm happy to say that much of this has turned into positive dialogue between the HL7 FHIR community and regulators. It's my hopes that the spotlight my white paper has brought on the data aggregators and intermediaries implementing FHIR APIs will bring about a safe, satisfactory, and logical conclusion to the risk to patients these vulnerable FHIR implementations outside the walls of EHRs create. Quoting Dave DeBronkart, I would endorse any kind of conclusion to this that would bring about a clear, practical sense of the real risk to patients if their data got hacked because of the threats I uncovered in aggregators, and how that could impede on the progress of the Patient Empowerment Committee's mission. I'm here to clarify what this white paper is and what it isn't. It's not an open disclosure advisory in scientific prose requiring peer review in health journals. It's a content asset created by my content creation firm who specializes in writing white papers and filmmaking in what we define as adversarial content. Adversarial content, as we define it, is content created for cybersecurity vendors to prove the efficacy of their product by hacking something. In light of the response to my paper, it was brought to my attention that there were individuals afraid to identify themselves because of a fear of reprisals by me. With that said, I want to introduce myself properly to all of you so I can alleviate any such fears that you might have about me or what my intentions were. I'm an ethical hacker with 21 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. I've sold 2 companies to public companies starting from the age of 20 years old. I retired at 27, started a venture capital fund. Then when I sold my second startup, I went to go work for the US intelligence community, supporting counterinsurgency and asymmetric warfare operations in Afghanistan and Iraq as a defense contractor. I was brought in by the Brigadier General of the US Marine Corps to the Pentagon to advise on securing its global networks. I'm a filmmaker and screenwriter, currently working on a screenplay for a new TV series based on my life. As a published author, I'm literally writing the book on hacking APIs and have published previous work in hacking APIs when I hacked 30 bank apps in less than a week in 2019. In 2020, I hacked 30 mobile health apps and APIs in less than a week and published research into hacking federal and state law enforcement vehicles through the automakers' APIs in 2021 that also affected every one of the automakers' cars on the road. My intentions with this white paper were simply to do a job that my client retained me for, which was to uncover vulnerabilities in healthcare APIs through a multi-phase effort, first focusing on mHealth APIs and apps, then in phase 2, FHIR, in order to produce this paper. The unintended outcome for my paper was the role I now find myself in as an ally of your cause. From the patient's perspective, I hope it will be an impetus for change to ensure patients are safer when exercising their direct rights of access. Patients need to have their own data to inform their care, and these data need to be secure. It's that simple. Some critics have suggested these findings are not surprising or that these findings are not part of the scope of HL7. They have commented on the style of the findings, including my use of artwork in the paper and how it was framed, or the motives behind them, and resorted to some very personal attacks against me regarding my gender identity. All of these have nothing to do with the critical vulnerabilities identified in this research. Since my report has been made public, it has received the attention of many news and media outlets who've run stories on it and its implications for patients and the information blocking rule. And now, not even the critics are refuting that the research findings aren't valid. Those key facts are that we have a clear and present danger in the insecure implementations of FHIR, with the aggregators and third-party developers affecting patient safety, security, and privacy. For the critics, further research into who they work for indicated that many of them either own or work for data aggregators. 7 months ago, I published a video on my YouTube channel putting an announcement out to the healthcare community to get involved in my new research to focus on FHIR. As a matter of fact, several major news outlets published stories on my call for participation, and several health-focused podcast shows had me on as a guest to discuss it. Companies from across the healthcare sector responded to that call for participation, including the major EHR vendors and academic community. To be candid, I didn't even know this community existed before this played out on Twitter. As a matter of fact, one of the questions I got was why I didn't bring this to the FHIR community via their chat site. Considering the fact that I had no idea this community existed, it begs to ask how I would even know a FHIR chat site existed. I had to even ask John Murky what a Zulip was. And finally, I want to make this clear. I'm not out to hurt anyone or exact vengeance on anyone for asking a question. My paper simply highlights things very wrong in the implementation of FHIR and layers of infrastructure outside the walls of healthcare providers. I'm on your side. This should never have been an us versus her narrative. If your mission is ultimately to represent the most vulnerable in our community, then I just handed you a year's worth of work that tells you where I see ubiquitous vulnerability, where you might not be looking, and is something we need to fix. Instead of fighting amongst ourselves, let's figure out how we can use this to continue your mission to better serve patients. I imagine this group has a responsibility to look at the full picture from a patient's perspective, and that we have a constructive debate from this group on how to make FHIR-enabled technology stronger, better, faster, and most importantly, secure for patients. We need to hold these outer layers of our healthcare system accountable because this doesn't just affect some of us, it affects all of us. Thank you. Take care of yourselves and each other.